Welcome to the Reviews Without Remorse podcast with Joe and Dave. Be warned, the discussions in this podcast may contain detailed spoilers. For spoiler-free reviews of newly released films, be sure to check out our show on our YouTube channel. Enter at your own risk and enjoy the show.
Did you ever hear the tragedy of Jon Favreau, the artist? I thought not. It's not a story Lucasfilm would tell you. It's a cinematic legend. Jon Favreau was so brilliant, so knowledgeable, he could use the Mandalorian to bring back our love of Star Wars. He could even make Reviews Without Remorse tolerate Revenge of the Sith. I am David, and I have spoken. And with me is the man in the shiny Beskar armor, Joe.
It is the way.
This is episode 147, and in this show we will discuss the third episode of The Mandalorian is out. We will discuss this last episode and hold off on the rest until after the season is done. Michael J. Pollard has died. The quintessential, hey, it's that guy, is gone, and we celebrate his career. And then, the prequel trilogy ends, still with its stilted dialogue, but at least it had some memorable moments. Joe and I discuss Star Wars Episode 3, Revenge of the Sith. Good afternoon, my man.
Good afternoon, my brother. How are you doing today?
A little tired. My job's been driving me crazy, but I suppose it's good just to have a job at this point. Am I right?
Yes, it's always a good thing. Always good to have a roof over your head.
Indeed. But other than that, how are you, sir? How's things been? You getting ready for Turkey Day?
I certainly am, and happy Thanksgiving to you, my friend, and to everyone listening. Yes, I'm very much looking forward to a very nice 4-day weekend.
Yeah, me too. Yes, I just picked up my turkey just before I started recording. I really have no idea where this show is going, but I am loving every second of it. I really, really am loving every second of it. I mean, I love the fact that he's doing the thing that I love about Star Wars the most, that he's telling the story without words. Okay? When it opens up, and spoilers, people, spoilers for episode 3 of The Mandalorian. When it opens up with everybody's calling him Baby Yoda. He's not Baby Yoda, okay? He's not Yoda, he's just the same species. When it opens up with the little baby unscrewing the thing from the thruster,
yeah.
It's like, and then later on, just as he's about to leave, when he goes to grab it, just that moment. What a great little moment that was. Here's an actor who's stuck in this costume head to toe and just reaches out with his hand, and just everything in his mannerisms and his look just tells everything you need to know. He didn't have to say a damn thing. And you just knew that he was going to give that shiny new Beskar armor a hell of a workout. And what a workout he gave it.
I'm going to keep it short because I feel like it's getting very redundant for me to come on every week and just say, love it, love it, love it. Finally, something that feels like Star Wars. Seriously, I feel like the only thing post episode 6 that has ever really given me a charge of Star Wars again has been Rogue One and The Mandalorian. Those two things, they get Star Wars for me. I really feel strongly that they really do. And again, the other incarnations, not as much. I will say two things. I will say that the episode was not disappointing, but I will say that it was more or less pretty predictable because you sort of knew kind of at this stage of the story, what's probably going to come next. So not a lot of surprises per se. And the other thing it kind of made me feel was, I think we talked in the beginning about whether or not this is a show that should be binge watched as opposed to watching every week. And I literally texted you as soon as the episode was over. If anybody asked me, just binge watch it. Just wait till it's done and binge the whole thing. Cause I do find it's a very short show. Like what did we say? 40 minutes?
Yeah, less than, I think each episode is like 30 minutes. The first one was 40.
I mean, I kind of feel like the those original Clone Wars cartoons were probably maybe not that short, maybe not that quite that long, but so yeah, I'm finding that the short bursts are mildly frustrating, and it's only frustrating because it's good, because the show is that good. Every time I feel like it's like I'm totally on board, I'm totally immersed, I'm ready for the next thing, and it's over. So yeah, so I would definitely suggest, if you haven't gone into it yet, just chill out until it's over and binge the whole thing. I mean, what is it? 8 episodes times a half an hour. You're talking about not even that long of a series. So that's my suggestion. But again, having said that, it's definitely recaptured the magic of Star Wars for me.
Now you just tell me what was wrong with that boy.
Dirt.
Dirt?
Dirt in the fuel line. Just blowed it away. Excuse me, ma'am. Is there anything else I could do for you today?
You're a smart fella. You sure do know a lot about automobiles, don't you?
Yes, sir. I guess I do.
Born May 30th, 1939. From our neck of the woods, Joe, Passaic, New Jersey. Michael J.
I didn't
Pollard.
know that.
Oh, yeah. Michael John Pollock Jr., or as he was professionally known, Michael J. Pollard. He stood at 5'6". The first time I remember this man was actually an episode of the original Star Trek series called Miri.
The original?
Yeah, the original Star Trek series.
Really? Okay.
Yeah, with the group of teenagers that were basically running a town, and at one point they're like, teasing Kirk with na 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 na. He led the charge.
Oh, okay.
Right? That was the first time I saw him. Probably what he'll forever be known of within like cinema would be as C.W. Moss in Bonnie and Clyde, 1967's Bonnie and Clyde.
Yep.
He had an amazing career, 116 credits to his name, steadily working. He was in a film, at least a film a year, sometimes 2. Favored by the wonderful Richard Donner. He also appeared in Scrooged. He appeared in Tango and Cash, Roxanne. He was on TV many, many times. Trust me, you've seen the guy, you've heard his voice. He's been in just about everything. He's been in freaking Blossom, for God's sake. He died at the age of 90, November 20th, 2019 in Los Angeles, California. As far as he really is the coining of the term, hey, it's that guy.
Yeah.
That actor that once you see him, sometimes you don't remember his name, because even Joe was like, oh yeah, that guy, the minute I said his name. And so yeah, he like you said, he popped up everywhere, and I think my personal favorite appearance of his would have to be Roxanne. Yes, that movie was awesome too. Go on.
It's just a fun little, really sweet kind of a movie, and again, he's just great in it. His appearance is great, and he's just such an enjoyable guy to see. We lost a lot of those kind of guys recently, where it just kind of just gave you a little warm fuzzy feeling. Oh yeah, that guy, I like him. So yeah, he will be missed.
Yes, he will. Farewell, my man, and thanks, another fellow Jerseyan.
The dark side of the Force is a pathway to many abilities some consider to be unnatural.
Is it possible to learn this power?
Not from a Jedi.
The Council wants you to report on all the Chancellor's dealings.
That's treason.
We are at war, Anakin.
Very dangerous putting them together. I don't think the boy can handle it. I don't trust him.
3 years into the Clone Wars, the Jedi rescue Palpatine from Count Dooku. As Obi-Wan pursues a new threat, Anakin acts as a double agent between the Jedi Council and Palpatine, and is lured into a sinister plan to rule the galaxy. written and directed by George Lucas, Star Wars, Episode 3, Revenge of the Sith. So, I'm going to go back to what I originally said. This trilogy is a great idea for a story. It is just told so terribly. And I mean, I like Revenge of the Sith. I think of all the prequels, I kind of felt like the action in this was my favorite in all of them, even though sometimes it still, looked animated and stilted, like almost over animated, like all the stuff with the clone troopers and stuff like that. They're like, oh, you can barely tell that's it's all CGI costumes. It's like, yeah, you can. You absolutely can tell those are CGI costumes. Don't pull my legs and expect to hear jingle bells, okay? But another thing that comes to mind as I'm watching this movie is I think of something that Obi-Wan said in the original Star Wars. He was the best star pilot in the galaxy. I think of these movies, it's like, okay, I'll grant you that. I think they did a pretty decent job of showing that. And a cunning warrior. I'm not 100% sure about that, but sure, fine. I'll buy that a little bit. And he was a good friend. Nope. I don't see friendship. I see two work buddies at best. Two work buddies.
At best, yeah.
That's not a friendship. So much potential of this trilogy was wasted. And it's part of the reason why it's so frustrating to watch it now. Because it's like you watch and you're like, okay, I really do get what you're going. And I think that's great. You really needed somebody else to bring these ideas together for you, George. You're a great idea, man. You are not a story writer. And that's what this trilogy taught me. There are great ideas here that you needed a much more talented writer to bring together.
Yeah. Yes, absolutely. I think, I'll just pick one of the themes of what you just said. I think what this film trilogy has shown us is that George Lucas, God love him, is way, I hate to say overrated, but overrated.
Don't hold back now.
Again, when he's left to his own devices, it is just a garbled mess. And he, we talked in the last episodes about the original Star Wars, and I sort of made the case about how, that I was arguing against the idea about Star Wars being for kids, to which I said, no, the original Star Wars is timeless and ageless because it is just a good story. And I argued, I said, the people who helped Lucas to make Star Wars, Francis Ford Coppola, John Milius, etc., his wife, who is probably the unsung hero of Star Wars. These are the people, when he surrounded himself with good people, he could put out good work. And one of the things I also would add to that, by the way, is if you've ever seen, just do a YouTube search for how Star Wars was saved in the editing room. When you see how Star Wars was originally intended, and you see kind of the meandering, lingering, way that story was going to start out, and the way versus the way it actually ended up. Again, you see the hints of what George Lucas does. And again, when you see the jump from Empire to Jedi, when we were kids, I don't think we caught it. But then as you got a little older, you went, oh, there it is. And then when you saw the prequels, you went, oh, yeah, that explains a couple of things in Jedi, doesn't it? Mm-hmm. Anyway, so here we are at Revenge of the Sith. And like the last two episodes, I'm finding it very difficult to not simply fall back on what Red Letter Media has already said about these movies, because I'm not kidding when I say
we should just write them a check at this point.
Right, seriously, thank you guys. Honestly, I I saw these films. I saw each one once in the theater, and that was it. And just like Red Letter Media says, he goes, when by the time you went to see the third one, it was like this obligation, you know. You just felt like we had to get this over with. And I swear to you, that's how I felt going into this. You know, I can recall feeling exactly that way. And, you know, so watching it again for the podcast today, it's like, oh yeah, there's all that. There's that. I mean, I've watched the Red Letter Media shows about this multiple times. I've seen the movies once. So honestly, as I rewatch the films, I kind of go, oh, there's something I didn't see. Like anything that Red Letter Media didn't focus on to me is like fresh and brand new again. So anyway, yeah, I mean, this film is what it is. And I think people very graciously and very generously call this the best of the bunch. I would say that's probably true, but by a hair, you know, like it's, you know, again, you're still talking about, you know, it's like it's this amateurish feeling. It's the weirdest, most expensive amateur project ever. I mean, it kind of feels, you know, I've you know, again, one of my favorite terms to throw out is fan films, whatever. It does not feel like a fan film. Mm-hmm. It does not. It feels like something else. It feels like something someone did and then kind of at some point slapped a Star Wars label on it. I mean, it doesn't feel anything like a fan would do a better tribute to Star Wars than this. It's a weird hodgepodgey sort of a movie. And again, so little of it makes actual sense to me. You know, and I totally agree with Red Letter Media, by the way, when they talk about how the jarring switch back and forth when you have to go from a scene of just people talking to an action scene. It feels like it's almost like, imagine you're in the arcade, you know, you're in an arcade and like if you were young and your parents gave you like $10 and you threw it into the change machine and you got quarters and your friends are with you, you could spend 10 minutes playing Pac-Man. And then you'll turn to your friend and say, well, what else is going on? And you'll talk to your friend for a minute. And then you're back to playing a video game again. I mean, that's how this feels. It feels like you're sort of playing a video game. And then sometimes you stop to talk to the person next to you for a minute, but then you're back into the game. So, yeah, I mean, the dialogue is shockingly bad. Shockingly bad. But we'll get into that later.
Wow, that was a hell of a diatribe. I think with most people, the big things, people felt very satisfied by the last lightsaber fight between Obi-Wan and Anakin. And I can kind of see where they're coming from because I kind of liked the beginning of that lightsaber fight. The minute they started getting the lava involved and stuff like that, I was like, this is ridiculous. This is getting out of hand. You know, that's now we're and that, oh God, the it's over, Anakin. I have the high ground. It's like, what? You know, Darth Maul had the high ground on you, you son of a bitch. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Stuff like that. It's bafflingly stupid. Like I'm slightly higher than you on this little hill. Therefore I win the battle. What? How stupid is that? I mean, and seriously, you're reminding me of. I mean, I remember from the first few frames of Phantom Menace. Remember, I talked about the force speed moment.
Yeah.
That happens once and never again, and it's so odd that it just feels like a mistake, like a literal mistake in the filming. It's one of the things I've never understood about these movies is the idea that a Jedi is essentially like a superhero. Like they give them superpowers that seem to sort of come and go as they please. Yeah, there are moments when they're jumping off super high things, landing on the ground with no problem. Yet I feel like in another scene, if they fell off the same height, they'd be hurt. You know, I mean, all the things they can do are just sort of bafflingly weird. Like there's no real logic to, again, to the kind of Jedi powers. There's a scene early on. I kind of when when they do the rescue of Palpatine from Grievous, and there's a scene where they go in and they're fighting Dooku, which already is kind of a dumb mistake because I can't stand any movie. I'm thinking the first 5 minutes of the Karate Kid 2. Do you remember how Karate Kid 2 opens with Miyagi fighting Kreese in the parking lot?
Yeah, and Kreese breaks his hands on the windows. Yeah. And it was so irritating. Like, I hate when movies do that because it's like, remember the big tension and the relationship in the first one? Yeah, we're gonna just exaggerate that so that we're gonna take that relationship to a weird extreme, and that's the kickoff of this movie. But technically, that was the ending to that movie. That was originally how it was supposed to end.
Yes.
Yeah. But go on. I'm sorry. I apologize.
Yeah. So they open this up with the big fight against Dooku, who was the big unbeatable villain from the second one, but now he's reasonably easy to beat, frankly. But there's a shot in there when Obi-Wan gets knocked out cold, and then he takes this big giant bridge and basically breaks it off, and it falls on Obi-Wan's legs.
Right.
And I watch every time I see that, I go, like, I kind of wince because I go, that would cut him in half if that was real.
Yeah.
Like, that bridge has to weigh a ton. Yet it falls on him, again, on an angle in a way that should sever his body. But it just kind of pins, he's just pinned down for a second. No, he would be in massive, like, again, he would be cut in half. So, but again, in this movie, he wakes up, everything is fine, no repercussions. So, I mean, stuff like that. It's like, I can't stand that. There's no logistics. There's no rules in these movies. It's just kind of this hodgepodge everything. And I mean, science fiction is tricky in general. And I find that like as much as I kind of like the new, like the original J.J. Abrams Star Trek, whenever I watch that, there are so many moments where I feel like the logic doesn't work. Like, for example, why would you build first of all, why does everything happen within a mile of where Kirk grew up in Iowa, for starters? But then when you see like they're building the Enterprise on the ground, why would that be? Why would you do that for a spaceship that is going to, a massive spaceship that is going to be in space? Why wouldn't you build it in space? Stuff like that. Like again, science fiction can be tricky because you're sort of living in this advanced world where a lot of these sort of problems would be sort of solved in the technology, but then they can do things that break those rules. Like when they, oh God, too much of a tangent.
Really? Not too much? I can't wait till you see the audio squiggles.
Seriously.
David, line, Joe.
Yeah, totally.
But go on. I'm not going to let you stop. You want to roll.
I just the logic of the there's no sort of rhyme or reason to things that happen in the movie. None. Again, whether it's personal relationships or literal, the way technology works. When the ship crash lands, why is there a runway? Nothing. There's nothing in this universe that ever required a runway. Yet they have a runway to crash land on. It doesn't make any sense.
Not nearly cutting Obi-Wan in half. The wonderful fight scene between Grievous and Obi-Wan where he gets thrown around a lot. When in essence he's a robot, he should just be able to reach in and tear him in half. He's got robot parts. Robot parts.
Yeah, I mean, even this guy, what is he?
He's some kind of human alien hybrid. Alien technology hybrid.
I mean, you never see parts, you never see any kind of blood. You never see under that armor. I mean, he looks just like a robot, yet for some reason he's got like a beating heart that Obi-Wan can shoot him in it and he's dead.
Yeah, pretty much. Kind of like the heart from Terminator Salvation. Let's build a robot, but he can keep his heart.
Right. Yeah, right, exactly, right. Again, the science fiction, you need to have sort of rules to live by. I mean, that's why the first Matrix is so good and the second two suck. again, you set up parameters, you set up rules, and now we have to play within those rules.
Right.
And we can understand it. It's very easy to get, immersed in that world if you get the rules.
You know what? Another thing I noticed while I was watching this movie, you're absolutely right, by the way. I apologize. I should point out that I 100% agree with you. But when I was watching this, I swear to you, Natalie Portman looked embarrassed. Because, I mean, they took this character that, for the prequel trilogies was a pretty strong woman. Didn't need, a man. Didn't need, anything except, what, she felt was right and everything like that, and stood up for what she believed in. And they neutered the ever-living hell out of her in this movie, didn't they? Right down to her freaking death.
Oh, good Lord. Yes. Yes, absolutely. I like I said, I'm trying not to reference Red Letter Media, but one of my favorite lines is like, what happened to her in this movie? He's like, in the last one, she was dressed. It was all skin, it was this half an S&M outfit she's wearing to drive this poor guy crazy. Now in this movie, she's dressed like a fucking Quaker.
I'm glad you're editing. It's not even the dress; it's the character, man. But the dress, yeah. You're right. That is actually a really funny line that they said. But it's the way the character evolved. She is a person that truly cares about helping others. That is how she has been portrayed since the first one. Willing to put her life on the line to save others. She loses her boy toy and F her kids. Oh, I'll live long enough to name them, but then I'll die of a broken heart.
Good Lord. Again, and that's when you're sitting there in the theater and you're like, oh, no, don't do it. Don't say it. Please don't say it. Please don't say it. Oh, it looks like it's as if she's lost the will to live. Oh, please don't do it. Oh, good Lord. Are you serious? And not for nothing, but again, when you see the motif, the whole Citizen Kane motif, and that's why she has to die. That's why she has to die when Darth Vader rises. I almost want to. I almost want to give George Lucas a pat on the head and say, "All right, you're trying. I see what you're trying to do here." But yeah, good Lord.
Like when you praise a kindergarten's stick figure artwork. It's like, it's Bugs Bunny. Yes, it is. Good job.
Right. Can't you see? Right. It's all Scrabble. Can't you see? It's me and you and mom and dad and whatever. Yeah, totally. Yeah, I mean, honestly. But that was the thing. I mean, George Lucas, at this point, his head is so far up his own ass. Everything has to be so self-important and serious, and so everything has to have gravitas. But again, seriously, Princess Leia in Return of the Jedi had memories of her mother. So, guys, don't screw that up. Just let her be. You know what? Like, this movie's over. Like, this franchise is over. You'll never see her again. Don't kill her just because. Oh, please. She died of a broken heart.
Or alternatively, you could have made it she died during childbirth due to complications from when Vader force choked her. Why couldn't you have done that? Why couldn't you have made it that the force choke slipped her into a coma and she wasn't awake when the babies were born?
Right.
Or something. You could have done something so much more. She didn't have to sit there and cry out and everything like that. Save him. He's still good, Obi-Wan. Oh, I don't want to live. You see, there's the other side of the coin. It's like, she dies of a broken heart, but she still has hope that there's still good in him. So how is her heart broken if she still has hope that there's still good in him? Explain. That's not even logical. How does this man date? How do you get women? Well, okay, I know how you get women now, George. You got a couple of billion going for you. But how did you get women before?
How are you going to get women now that Epstein is dead?
Epstein didn't commit suicide.
Epstein didn't kill himself. Well, I'll tell you what. You know what? let's talk about it. Anakin Skywalker, Darth Vader. When by the time he does force choke Padme, you're just like, I have no idea what this character is motivated by anymore. Like his whole, again, they ruined this character from the get-go. I mean, this franchise really never had a chance. Once you saw how it opened, and once you got into this whole thing about how his mother died, and I mean, once he started having dreams of Padme dying, you're just like, oh Christ, are you really gonna do this? Is this really how this is gonna go down? He's gonna get tricked by Palpatine, suckered by Palpatine with these weird tales of nonsense that anybody who's not in kindergarten would be like, yeah, now you're full of crap. You can't, you can't. If somebody figured out a way to not have people ever die again, which again is the most childish line ever written in Clones, I'll even figure out a way to stop people from dying. Who's writing this? Are you kidding me? What grade? Anyway, by the time he gets to the end and he's force choking Padme, who was the whole reason he turned to the dark side in the first place. And again, it's like the whole point of the Darth Vader character is totally ruined because he's not a villain. Darth Vader is actually not a villain anymore. He's a good guy who got tricked by somebody into something, and for some reason, that meant you had to now be a bad guy. It made no sense whatsoever.
What have I done? What have I done? I'll do whatever you say. What?
How dumb. And then literally right after he kills off Samuel L. Jackson, he goes, well, it's not like we really did figure this out, but I'm sure you and I can figure this out together. Like, what? Wait.
Yeah,
you figured
that would kind of be my moment of, wait, what?
Right. You would think at that point that like he would say, oh boy, I just got sold a bill of goods. I'm not going to turn bad after all. I got to fix what I just did. Nope. Not anymore. No. It's so bafflingly stupid. By the way, there are two for my Who Asked You, there are two things floating through my mind, and I feel like I can't decide which one. One of them I'm going to save for the end. The other one I might as well talk about, but I still haven't decided which is which yet.
Okay.
I guess I'll make a choice and talk about this. When the Emperor blasts himself in the face with the lightning, I swear to God, I sat in the movie theater and I went, like, that to me was like, that's it. That is it. I had one hope left for this movie, literally. One hope that they would not screw that up, and they screwed it up in a way beyond my comprehension. I couldn't even imagine they would goof that up as bad as they did.
What were you hoping for?
I thought for sure, because again, by the when the first one opened, when the first one happened, when the first one opened and you saw Ian McDermott's character, and you saw that he was, on one hand he's the politician, but over here he's wearing the cloak and he's already talking like the Emperor, and you're kind of going, what? Okay, what? Why is he talking like the Emperor over here and not talking like the Emperor over here? It was almost like I couldn't tell if he was playing literal two characters or not. I thought maybe there would be some we'll find out later why he's playing two separate characters. And then you realize he's not. He just talks like the Emperor when no one's looking. Like he's talking in his Batman voice. I guess when you have a secret identity, you got to change your voice to go along with it.
Of course, because that's all.
So, but I thought, I thought, well, maybe the idea is that by the time we get to the third one, he's going to be old and wrinkly or whatever. But by the time the third one comes around, and he's not old and wrinkly, I really thought for sure that they were going to do something along the lines of, like, he'd be talking to Anakin at one point, and he would turn, and all of a sudden, like, his face would morph into the real Emperor. Like he's been hiding his true form this whole time. This is like this is his evil real look, but he puts on this like sweet old man, Joe Lieberman facade on the outside.
Right.
So I was pretty sure that's where they were going to go. No. He lightning blast Samuel Jackson. Samuel Jackson blasts it back into his face, and it turns him into, as Mr. Plinker would say, puffy monster face guy. What the actual F is that? That is the stupidest thing. I mean, he's literally he's shooting himself in the face, melting his face off, and he doesn't say, maybe I'll stop doing this. No. He literally just melts his own face off. I don't think this has to be one of the stupidest things in film history. How could you screw that up? That was that was a softball. How could you guys blow that? Then I remember when I saw Jedi, I thought for sure, and again, this is going back to when I was young and all my little kind of fan theories.
Mm-hmm.
I thought for sure that the Emperor was the same species as Bib Fortuna.
Oh, interesting.
I thought for sure, because again, he had the yellow eyes. I thought the makeup was very similar. He had the big kind of bulgy things on his forehead. I thought for sure, if he took the hood off, he'd have those kind of like Bib Fortuna tentacles hanging off.
Right.
But I guess not. I guess he's just a human with an ugly, puffy monster face because he bolted himself with lightning. There goes my theories. But again, I thought for sure they would have, again, had him reveal his true evil form as the Emperor. But no, he's literally just the same old guy and just decided to melt his own face off.
Were your expectations subverted?
There you go.
See,
the original Ryan Johnson. We didn't even. Maybe Ryan Johnson's not so crazy. He's saying, guys, I'm more like Lucas than you have any idea.
I might actually buy that after this. The yellow eyes were supposed to be indicative of a person consumed by the dark side. That's why Darth Maul had them. That's why he got. But it doesn't explain why all of a sudden now it's there. It's like you could have done it so many different and better ways. There is a, going back to my opening statement, there's meat here, and maybe it's not like a roast. Maybe you can't make a Thanksgiving or a Christmas dinner out of it, but you could have made a stew. You could have made a stew out of what we have. The idea is good. It's just that you have an inexperienced cook who minced the meat into a fine pulp, over-salted it, did not use broth, used water, and used rotten vegetables. That's really what we got here, because the ideas behind it, the idea that that he's basically just a grown-up little boy who never really grew up, a Peter Pan-esque character who still had childlike, views of how the world is supposed to work, and slowly got seduced by the dark side. That would have been a great story to actually watch. I feel watching that would have been a much more compelling. There's a moment in the it's done terribly. It really, really is. There's a moment where and it's what I paraphrased for the opening, where he talks about the legend of Darth Plagueis, one of the first Sith Lords, when they're sitting there in the opera. And as I'm watching this, the first time I was watching it, it was part of me like, okay, so this is it. This is, we're finally going to get some meat into this seduction of the dark side and stuff like that. And, freaking McDermott tries to play it, but Christensen, he's acting like he doesn't know how to take it back. And the nonsense that he spews out, this doesn't sound seductive at all. I wanted this really cool psychological study of a manipulation of a childlike mind into realizing his vision, so that by the time he actually says, well, you've killed, you could have had that great moment of when he does kill Samuel L. Jackson, really be a powerful piece like a literal reflection of everything he's done so far, and realizing that, maybe he is right. The seduction, they use the word seduction. Vader was seduced by the dark side of the Force, okay, which I thought was an interesting term when it was first utilized. There's no seduction here. There's no, like, you watch, and I hate to bring up a modern movie, but you take something like Avengers Infinity War, okay, and we've talked about this.
Mm-hmm.
We've talked about how the motivations of Thanos is, to me at least, was one of the things that I really enjoyed, because yeah, he's crazy and he's a nutter for his idea, but they gave meat to his idea, and it's like, well, he's nuts, but there's something to be said about what he sees as a problem within the universe, which is fine. But at no point does Palpatine. The key of this is Palpatine needed to seduce the audience as well as Anakin. He did neither. He never came across as any more than at best a snidely whiplash character. Okay, two-dimensional to the bone. And I guess I don't have a problem with two-dimensional villains in certain contexts and stuff like that. I mean, if you want to break it down, like Hans Gruber, one of the greatest cinematic villains of all time, he's a little bit two-dimensional. But there was enough meat in there that both McTiernan and the late Alan Rickman was able to pull something out of it. Now, Ian McDiarmid is not a terrible actor, but he gave me nothing to work with. There was nothing logical in the fall of Anakin Skywalker. I should have witnessed a tragedy. All right. I should have seen like a Shakespearean style tragedy. What I saw was a whiny kid realize, oh shoot, I picked the wrong side. Well, I made my bed. I'm going to have to sleep in it. That's what I saw. And not even in a compelling way. And in the end, for nothing. So that he lashes out with anger and he kills the one thing that he gave up all this crap for. And it's like, oh, well, we'll find the solution to bringing people back to life. Well, then what the hell was the point of him going, no, at the end?
Right. Seriously. Right. You're absolutely 1000% correct. I mean, when you watch the film and you see, again, like, and I'll say this. It does start in Return of the Jedi. I remember Return of the Jedi, and when Luke and Vader were having the big confrontation, and Luke is like, "Oh, I will not fight you. I will not fight you. You're my father." Blah, blah, blah. And after a while, I started to kind of go like, "All right, dude, this whole pacifist BS is really starting to get on my nerves," because, like, that's when I was starting to feel like I don't think Lucas is really understanding what the Force is and what the dark side versus the light side and what every side wants. It's like if you fight, it's like now suddenly Jedis are all about just not fighting and being these kind of pacifists, even though they have lightsabers and have fought wars. I mean, this is I understand that Jedi, it's different because it's literally a son against the father. So yes, I get the idea that you don't want to raise arms against your own father, and he's trying to turn him back to I get that. But the way it's conveyed, the way it's the way they speak, the dialogue, it's all very kind of wonky because again, it just makes it sound like just being a meanie head makes you a dark side person. And these films are the same, where again, you have the Jedi and you have the Sith, but no one ever actually does anything. When Samuel Jackson says the oppression of the Sith will never return. Well, even 3 films in, I don't know what that is. I have no clue what that means. And when the Empire takes over, I mean, again, at least in like in Star Wars, just the presence of the stormtroopers was enough to kind of make you feel like that, it was like a police state and, they crack down and they keep very rigid control over people. So it made sense. But in these films, nothing is established at all. When the Empire takes over, what actually changes? I don't know.
So you're right. I don't know.
I don't know. I don't know. I don't know. I don't know. I don't know. I don't know. I don't know. I don't got nothing to do with this. I don't know.
your help, son. I'm appointing you to be my personal representative on the Jedi Council.
You are on this council, but we do not grant you the rank of master.
What? Obi-Wan and the Council don't trust me.
Learn to know the dark side of the Force, and you achieve a power greater than any Jedi.
Another thing that they screwed up on, the stormtroopers or the clone troopers or whatever you want to say. Okay. Execute Order 66.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, the idea that there was some kind of like little code within them that, made them completely loyal, whatever, to the Emperor. I like that idea. But here's my biggest problem with it. It's like when I envisioned, him calling to execute Order 66, I figured it was almost like a switch that just went off in the heads of the clones. Because these clones like fought side by side with them. They trusted them and everything like that. You had to build that trust. So you're just telling me that the clones, on top of being, part of, Jango Fett and everything like that, are also the world's greatest actors?
Right.
Building that trust and everything like that. They couldn't even do the right thing of have it be like if Commander Cody, the first guy to see it, when he says execute Order 666, if he just like stood up just a little straighter and said, "It will be done, my lord," that would have made all the difference in the world to me. But he did.
Yes.
It was like, oh, okay, cool.
Right. Yes. There's something, right? A little like just a music beat done, and he kind of like you said. Now suddenly he's kind of standing upright and rigid, it should have been like a Manchurian Candidate type of like a code word, yeah. And then like that has been programmed into them, but even then it would have been weak because honestly, I thought that whole, I going back to clones, I always found that whole thing sort of bizarre about the Jedi who makes all the clones, and then when like the people on the water planet say, "Oh yeah, your clones are done," and it's almost like, okay, I'm Ben Kenobi, and I'm here to just pick up the delivery of clones, and I guess they just kind of collect them all and fight the war with them. So they were all under the control of the Jedi right up until that second.
Yep.
But you figure, how come the people on the water planet didn't say to Ben Kenobi, "Oh, by the way, we put that secret code word in their brains just like you asked for"? Huh? What? The one that's going to eventually murder all of you or something? I don't know.
Joe. You're missing the brilliance of the plan. That's the whole thing. That's what Palpatine did. He's the one that ordered the clones, and he told them that eventually the Jedi will show up, and never tell them about Order 66. That's a secret between us. You make it sound like they It's ridiculous. It is seriously the most ridiculousness of ridiculousness. How many times can I say that? I don't know. It flies in the face of everything. Excuse me. I'm going to try that again. It flies in the face of everything that they tried to establish. Okay, it goes back to what you said earlier about consistency. They try to say these are the rules of this universe, and then they throw those rules out of the universe because they need something different for this time. Like your complaint about the Hulk, how in each subsequent Avengers movie, they kind of like tweak the Hulk just to be whatever they need at that particular point. I don't feel like those movies were as egregious with that as these movies have been. There is no they try to establish that there's a science to the Force with midichlorians, but then they throw all that crap out the window. It's like, oh, with the Force, you can, you should be able to control this. Oh, look, they could jump down these long distances and survive. That was a long distance that Obi-Wan, fell out of, and he hit the water though. It's okay. No, it's not okay. It is not okay. That's that's still like hitting concrete.
Yeah.
All right.
Right.
So,
go ahead.
But in the previous movie, when he's falling off the side of the place in Camino, he's like, "Oh no, I'm going to fall into the water! Quick, I'm going to use a grappling hook to get onto that." You use that type of inconsistency of storytelling, you break too much. Now, I understand that the general gist of these things are supposed to be space operas, and you're supposed to, Not you, like, people talk about all the time. It's like, well, how do lightsabers work? How you can't make a laser stop that distance, blah blah blah. And it's like, well, you got to throw some things, aside for the sake of blah 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 blah. And I used to defend that to nobody's sense, but watching these prequels again was just like a reminder of he just literally threw stuff on the wall because he thought it sounded or looked cool, and logic be damned.
And I'm hearkening back to yet again another quote from my hero, Mr. Plinkett.
Just send Mike a frickin' check, for God's sake.
One of the most painful things about these prequels, you can't undo them. These will forever. And by the way, now that sentiment is doubly painful when you realize, yes, this is it. This is Star Wars now. Star Wars is episode 4, 5, and 6, and then 1, 2, and 3, and 7, 8, and 9. And of all of that 9, what percentage would you say are good to great movies? Out of 9, I'd say 2, and the rest are barely passable. It's painful to say that.
Well, we haven't seen part 9 yet, Joe.
Oh, which I'm sure is going to retcon the whole thing.
Every single Jedi is now an enemy of the Republic. Do what must be done.
All right, man. Let's score this mess.
I will give this I believe I gave Phantom Menace a 4.
Mm-hmm.
And I think if I'm being honest with myself, it was probably because I was feeling peer pressure from Liam. And then I gave the second one a 3.
Which you brought down to a 2.
What's that?
You brought that down to a 2. Actually,
I did give it a 2, didn't I?
Yeah.
You know what? Yeah, I did give it a 2. So maybe I'll give this one a 3. I'll split the difference and give this one a 3. It is nonsense and gobbledygook, and everything from the stilted wooden performances, which again, because you're doing everything on a green screen in a small cramped space, to the story, to just a lot of the visuals. I mean, do you remember when Order 66 happens and the Jedi girl who's got she's kind of a Bib Fortuna looking thing?
Mm-hmm. She's
green.
Twi'lek.
Yeah. When the shot of her, again, she's standing there and the troopers are behind her, and then she looks around, you see her kind of looking nervously for a second, and then they shoot, and you just go, and her arms kind of go up and she just falls. And it's like, wow, there was a mighty warrior right there. just went down in a little it's
in her defense, she was just she was kind of a special effects artist that they just happened to have on the set at the time. So yeah, I mean, and just like all the kids who I'm sure were like just the children of the producers. Yeah, I mean, again, if George Lucas is obviously not trying to get an Oscar-winning performance out of these people. So anyway, the whole thing is hot garbage. I can't imagine a worse way to tell these stories. I sometimes can't even believe that a grown-up made this, frankly. And again, that excuse about how it's made for children. No. Just because you write like a child doesn't mean it was meant for a child. I was one of the people that was a proponent of that. We should view it as if it was written for kids. But to be perfectly honest with you, after having reviewed it, that's not an excuse, and that's not a good enough reason. I gave it a 4, and I'm only being generous because what's funny about these movies, about each of these prequels, I really enjoyed all of the space shots, all the space-based special effects. I thought were beautiful. I thought really, really worked. They're the only things that have held up. You know what else also held up? John Williams. The man tried. The man is a freaking legend. And his little, motif that he used during the Execute Order 66 gave that a hell of a lot more gravitas than the actual scene itself did. But when it comes down to it, I blame Lucas. I don't blame Ewan McGregor. Ewan McGregor tried, and he still is probably my favorite part of the prequels, because you could tell the guy really enjoyed this part. He really did enjoy it, and it's proof positive because now he's doing that TV show, which I'm very much looking forward to. All right, he really did put into it as much as he could, given what he had, all the bad dialogue. He tried to make it work. He tried to give it, breathe life into it, but I don't blame him. It's all on George Lucas. There isn't a lot to like about these prequels, and there's only a handful of stuff that I thought were, I mean, in Lucas's defense, he sometimes puts up things visually that are interesting, but that's not enough. And that's never been enough with Star Wars, because if you have something pretty without soul, go get some oils and draw a painting then. Don't make a movie.
Yeah. Good point there.
Who asked you, my man?
Who asked me? I said earlier there was a couple things.
Yeah, indeed.
Yeah, I don't know if what I'm going to say is as bad as the Emperor's face melting off, because honestly, I didn't want to save that one, because honestly, I felt that deserved a pretty good sized rant. So I kind of let it rip on that one. So that is definitely one of them. Needless to say, that's obviously up there as well.
Which actually was edited down.
Is that right?
Yes, it was.
But the one I will give it to, which probably sounds pretty minor in the big scheme of things, and it kind of is, but the one I have to and just want to give it to is the line when Obi-Wan Kenobi and Anakin Skywalker are facing off, and Obi-Wan Kenobi says to Anakin, "But the Sith are evil," and Anakin replies, "From my point of view, the Jedi are evil." From my point of view, the Jedi are evil. Has to be the worst written line of dialogue ever put to celluloid.
Even above sand?
Even above sand. Even above sand. This to me is so bad that it feels like something that should have been a note in the margin where somebody said, "I don't know how I'm gonna write this yet. I don't know what I want my characters to say yet, but essentially I need them to express the idea that, well, I think this is evil, and from my point of view, that one's evil." Not actual dialogue. No one would ever say the words, "From my point of view, you're evil." It's so shockingly stupid, and honestly, it's and again, the reason I'm kind of harping on this is that I think it really does tell you volumes about how George Lucas writes, or lack of writing, how he sees people.
I just see people, and I just play people,
and how he expresses himself in a way that just, again, people don't talk like that, and you have to say words. You have to put words in people's mouths that actually sound like something that a human being would say.
Mm-hmm.
No one has the presence of mind. If you have the presence of mind to say, "From my point of view, you're wrong," then you've sort of admitted that you know that the other one is not wrong. It's like you're confessing that, like, well, I just happen to have a certain. We all have our own points of view. We all have our own positions on things. And again, if you and I are having an argument and you're doing something wrong, I'll tell you you're wrong. You'll tell me you're wrong. We're not going to sit there and say, "Well, from my point of view, you're wrong." No, that doesn't make any sense anymore once you say it like that.
Especially in a debate setting, it would make sense. This is in the middle of a freaking sword fight, for God's sake.
Right.
So yeah, I'm going to grant you that one. That's a good one. I like that. And there's a ton of that. If you're not with me, you're my enemy. That's another one. I have a couple. It's almost low-hanging fruit at this point, but the romantic dialogue is so goddamn stilted, it's painful. And I realized George has never been with a woman. Also, I love the idea of General Grievous, but I hated the execution of him in this movie. He was much better served in both animated series.
Yeah.
Much better executed. Much more terrifying in both of them, I felt. The reveal of Palpatine as the Sith to Anakin, I was giggling. When he had that little semi-orgasmic look on his face, it's like, George, what are you telling him to do? What the hell are you telling him to do? But in the end, Joe, I said it during the show, and I'm going to stick with it. Padme, the desecration of the character of Padme and her giving up because of a broken heart, but, not wanting to stick around for her kids and stuff like that is the shoddiest way to kill a relatively beloved character like I have ever seen in my life. I don't know if she deserved better, because frankly, we didn't really get a lot about her character, just what was told to us. But I kind of feel like whatever characterization that they could have done with her got completely assassinated by that. It was awful. And I gave a better idea of how they could have changed it to make that work. There it is.
I'm with you.
All right, but now we got to do for your consideration, and I've made you go first the first two times. I'll take this one. I liked the start of Anakin and Obi-Wan's lightsaber fight. Not the dialogue, the actual, jibber jabber back and forth, the actual clang clang, like that, like the beginning of that. The minute they started going outside and fighting with the lava and stuff like that is where it kind of derailed. So that's why it is not for your consideration. I really liked the way that it was edited, and I liked the music that was used during Execute Order 66, but it is not going to be my for your consideration, simply because it's like you said, the Twi'lek falls down to the ground in a lump, like nothing. It's like, every other Jedi that they showed, I thought did really, really well, but that one right there just was like, give me a break. Just give me a freaking break. In the end, I'm going to give it to the makeup guys who made that actor look like Grand Moff Tarkin.
Okay.
Because it's the only because as far as I can tell, behind the scenes, the makeup people who did their best to make that guy look like Grand Moff Tarkin cared.
Mm-hmm.
That's it. That's my thing. That's all I've got that I think about. Because when I look at the first time I saw him, I was like, wow, man, they did a really good job on the makeup. And even when I was watching it again, I said, wow, they did a really good job on the makeup. Granted, we've seen, with the computer what they could do nowadays, and they did a great job with that in Rogue One. But, for its time over 15 years ago, that the makeup effects I felt were pretty impressive. And the fact that they were actual makeup effects. So, yeah, that's where I'm going, my man. That's where I went. Out of everything else that happened in the movie, that's where I went, because that was the only thing at any point in the movie that made me sit up and say, oh. And if it made me sit up and say, oh, I'm going to give it. It's a stretch.
I tell you what, I think I can even be more passive aggressive than you with mine.
Let's hear it, my man.
I am going to go with the last shot. Well, more specifically, the when they show the Death Star at the end, they show Darth Vader and the Emperor standing on a Star Destroyer, and again, kind of frustrating because really, like, the last second of the film is going to look kind of like the actual Star Wars that this is supposed to lead into. All the spaceships have been wildly differently designed. Now suddenly he's on a Star Destroyer. But the shot of the Death Star being built, I feel like that is so telling. That is such a great metaphor for the entire way that this trilogy has been constructed. Remember before when you were talking about how you could not have made a full course meal out of this. You could have made like a stew,
Mm-hmm.
you were kind of coming up with food analogies. I got a great analogy for you.
Hit me.
My girlfriend Mary, she's young. She's in her 20s, late 20s, maybe early 30s, and she's got to do Thanksgiving for the first time. And she was given as a gift one of those really big coffee pots, the good old school brew coffee pots.
Mm-hmm.
Well, she doesn't know how to use it. So what she did was she just made, it's a 12-cup coffee pot. Well, she made 12 individual cups of instant coffee and poured it into the coffee pot. And of course, when everybody drank it, they went, "This coffee is terrible. What did you do?" And we find out that she poured individual cups of instant coffee into the brewer. That's kind of how I see this movie. Okay. I see this movie as, again, had all the budget, had all the creatives, and at the end, it is an empty suit. It is a big, giant, empty suit. And when you see, I wish you could see Dave's face for this, by the way. He's priceless. And when you look at the design of the Death Star being built, okay, they don't build it from the inside out, right? Which you think they would be doing.
Mm-hmm.
Nope, not Lucas. He's going to build it from the outside in. He's going to build it from the little, just enough of the outside, kind of a circle, and there's where the big death ray is going to go. He builds the skeleton on the outside so it's visible, so you can see it and say, "Oh, that's the Death Star." But in reality, wouldn't they build it from the inside out?
That's a good question, but they do technically build houses from the outside in.
Fair enough. But I put it this way: when you see in Rogue One, you see them sort of finishing up the Death Star, even in Jedi, frankly.
Mm.
Like you see sort of the meat of it, and they're kind of working towards the outside to finish it out, right?
Mm-hmm.
And in Rogue One, they're putting the dish in sort of as the finishing touch, right?
Right on. Yep.
Not here. I just think that the design of that, the look of what they're trying to show you, as opposed to trying to tell your brain, well, this is sort of what they'd be doing. Again, I just find it to be a sort of a really good metaphor for the problems of this film. It's an empty suit. And I know that's not exactly for your consideration, but
it's close enough. It was passive aggressive like mine. One thing, it was very nice knowing you, sir. You have revealed an embarrassing story about your lady, and even though you tried to cover it up with, my 20, 30, early 30s-year-old lady, you're still a dead man. You and I both know you're a dead man. So it was really nice knowing you.
She has a lot of catching up to do on episodes, so it'll be quite a while before she gets to this.
You were the chosen one!
And thus ends the Star Wars trilogy. It's funny. I don't think we actually have done the original trilogy.
No, we have not. We have not done the original trilogy.
Well, I guess we know what we're doing. Well, not this year, but eventually. But yes, this ends the original Star Wars trilogy. That was a lot harder than I thought it was going to be. Thankfully, we had the Mandalorian to wash a little bit of it out.
Yes, I might have to rewatch a couple of those now.
Yeah, I don't blame you. But next week, ladies and gentlemen, we're going into some very interesting territory here. Joe is, what's the right word for this one? He's obliging me by doing this film series. Mostly because I actually got a kick out of the newest one last year, and there's a new one coming out, so it kind of feels like, let's just do this. Next week, we're going to go back to the original Jumanji, the Robin Williams Jumanji, and start the Jumanji series.
And yes, I am kind of obliging you. And frankly, you're making me realize that while there are several films in the theater that I am anxious to see, and frankly need to see because we are coming up on our top 10s for the year, you're going to make me plunk down $10 to go see Jumanji 3.
You know, in hindsight, sorry.
As you said, my friend, I once in a while we each get to dive into our guilty pleasures, so I have to allow you a guilty pleasure here and there.
Very well, very well. But yes, we will be doing Jumanji next week, ladies and gentlemen. So until then, thank you for putting up with us, and I apologize for the lateness of the podcasts. That's on me. I just have been crazed, but we'll catch up. We promise. Until next time, sir. Great show again, my man.
Thank you, sir, as always, and I will see you next week. Thanks for listening to the Reviews Without Remorse podcast with Joe and Dave. Join us here every Thursday for a new episode. And be sure to check out the Reviews Without Remorse channel on YouTube for spoiler-free reviews of new releases. If you enjoyed this podcast, please consider becoming a patron. You can find our page on patreon.com. As little as $1 a month goes a long way. All clips in this podcast are used for commentary and critique, and is considered fair use. No copyright infringement is intended.
Inform the Emperor that the Jedi Temple has been sealed.
Yes, my lord.
Annie?
What the?
Annie! Little
Jar
Annie!
Jar, I am no longer Anakin Skywalker.
These are some nice adults, you booba!
Look, Jar Jar, it is very important that you never speak to me again.
What's happened to you? Should burn your face?
Jar Jar.
Annie Popelli! What's happened to you?
Jar Jar, homie, my main man, quickly. Before the Separatists attack, get into the escape pod.
Hey! If this is escape, then we're the pod. Annie, look! You're not gonna believe it! Me's are all sparkly glowy. Now we're gonna have all the time to spend together. I love